This, apparently, is holding. But this is not pass interference. One Ruffing the Passer, show where I talk football, miscellaneous stuff, and mostly football. I'm your host, Sam Ruffing, just a simple man trying to make his way through the galaxy. And this is episode 85 of Ruffing the Passer, and it's going to be a good show today. Let's start off with some news today. The Denver Broncos have released outside linebacker Randy Gregory, who they signed only a year ago to a 5-year, $70 million deal from the Dallas Cowboys. Randy Gregory only played about 10 games in Denver, recording 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and only 11 tackles. So not great. Pretty much exactly what he did in Dallas, maybe even less because he had fewer tackles. But apparently Randy Gregory was supposed to be a great player for the Broncos because he got pressures. You know, the stat that kind of helps because maybe it forces a turnover, but it doesn't put the quarterback on the ground. I mean, I'm not too surprised that this signing backfired for the Denver Broncos. I didn't like it when it first happened. I mean, the most sacks he ever had in a season was 6. He was often injured. And, yeah. By cutting Randy Gregory, the Broncos will eat about $16 million in dead cap money this season, which is a lot, but, like, who are they going to sign mid-season to a big deal? Like, what do they need this cap space in 2023 for? But next season, they do eat $6 million in dead cap, but they do save $10 million on the cap space, so kudos to George Paton for that move. Although, not so kudos to George Paton for signing Randy Gregory in the first place, which was another disappointing signing for the Denver Broncos in a long list of rather disappointing signings. You know, the kind that Denver makes when they don't want to pay top dollar in free agency for a big star, a guy who everyone really knows who can maybe contribute, but they don't want to go back to the well and draft a rookie who has potential but is going to be raw. So they just signed a guy to a lot of money, but not the most money, who is kind of in between those and is the worst of both worlds and never works out. And the Broncos have been making a lot of these signings. I mean, examples, Randy Gregory, they signed him for $70 million for 5 years instead of going to the draft and drafting a guy, which actually they did do, in Nick Bonito, who has played better. Or they could have signed Von Miller that same offseason, which would have cost a little bit more. And yes, Von Miller was old, but I mean, I'm sure he would have loved to come back to the Denver Broncos. He's just been a much better player overall in his career, and he maybe would have taken a little bit of a hometown discount. But no, the Denver Broncos decided to sign Randy Gregory, who was exactly, as mentioned, you know, a guy who's not as good as Von Miller, but you don't have to develop a rookie guy, so we'll just pay him a lot, but not too much, and of course it backfires because you get what you pay for in the NFL. The Broncos have been doing this over and over again, and it's honestly been a huge problem, and it just bugged me. I mean, the Jawan James signing in 2019, that's when it was, 2019, when they paid him a lot of money, but not like the most money at right tackle. And what did he do? Absolutely nothing. It backfired in the face. He played 2 games, got injured, took up a lot of money, and was just terrible. Had they either waited for the draft, they could have drafted a right tackle then, instead of drafting Noah Fant, who was a bust here in Denver. Or they could have just signed an even bigger named tackle, but they decided to go right down the middle and sign a mid guy to a way too much. Same thing happened with Case Keenum. In 2018, they could have either shelled out the money for Kirk Cousins, or they could have drafted a quarterback, but they decided to go shell out money to Case Keenum, who was okay, but not great. And they overpaid him. Or they could have just not signed Kirk Cousins or not signed Case Keenum and drafted a guy like Josh Allen. And that would have worked out. But Denver decided to be cheap. And They got what they paid for. You know what really bugs me about this Randy Gregory signing? If they don't sign Randy Gregory, is Bradley Chubb still on this team? Because part of the problem with Bradley Chubb, why he didn't stick around this year, is because I'm not sure the Broncos can necessarily afford to pay him the massive contract that he would have, wanted. But was that because Randy Gregory was eating up way too much cap space with his terrible contract? Like, if they don't sign him, does Bradley Chubb not get traded? And if so, that means they don't hire Sean Payton, yes. But then you have a pass rusher who would have been extremely helpful in these first 3 games. Or if they hadn't signed Randy Gregory and signed Von Miller. I mean, I'm sure he would have won a few games for Denver this year. Looking at the Raiders and Commanders games specifically. The Broncos just keep doing this year in and year out, and it makes no sense to me. They just sign guys who are kind of mid, who they kind of should realize are mistakes, but they try to hype them up to be something that they're not. And, I mean, it's like fantasy football. When you draft a guy who's kind of a starter, but, like, you don't really like, and you immediately regret the pick afterwards. Like, I drafted Dameon Pierce this year. I'm like, that's a mistake. And, yeah, it was a mistake. Those type of signings. And it doesn't make any sense why Denver just doesn't shell out the top dollar. It's worked for them in the past. Or just draft. Either one, instead of going this middle ground, which really doesn't work and leaves the team like it is now. Hollow, empty, lacking star players. I mean, it's worked out in the past. You signed DeMarcus Ware, who was a great player, to a semi-big contract, and it worked out for you. You got a Super Bowl. This past offseason, you signed Mike McGlinchey, who was a big-name right tackle, to a lot of money. And yes, he's had some false starts. A few too many. But it's worked out for them. I don't know why Denver just doesn't sign more big players. Well, at the very least, the Denver Broncos did get a win on Sunday. It was a brutal win. I mean, making Chicago look semi-decent for 3 quarters. I mean, not semi-decent, look great for his 3 quarters. Allowing Justin Fields to have his first ever 300 passing yard game in the NFL wasn't brilliant. And the defense is still terrible. The offense baffles me. I'll say it sometimes. But a win's a win. A win is a win. Man, I couldn't get the game in my area, but I was just checking updates all the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Denver. How are you allowing the Bears to do this? I mean, it didn't help that the refs made one of the worst touchdown calls I've ever seen. I mean, DJ Moore's foot never touches the ground, but that's somehow called a touchdown. I don't know. But even still, just they allowed yard after yard after yard. Justin Fields had only 1 incompletion in the first half, and it was on a Hail Mary attempt. A Hail Mary attempt. That should not be the only incompletion for Justin Fields. But I couldn't get in the game in the area. I had to go somewhere after the Broncos, scored their second touchdown of the game. And so I was out, doing stuff. I came back, and the Broncos tied the game, 28. I'm like, what the heck happened? Cortland Sutton caught a touchdown. Russ has thrown 2 touchdowns. The defense has made a stop. Nick Bonito is an absolute stud. But they're allowing the Bears to get into their territory and have a chance to kick the field goal, yet somehow the Bears don't go for the field goal. They decide not to take the points, which is the stupidest thing ever. And they get stuffed on 4th down, which is a miracle in itself, considering how bad this defense has been. But Russ leads the field goal drive. Will Lutz kicks the game winner. And Kareem Jackson seals it with an interception late in the game. It was an ugly win. It was a game that shouldn't have been as close as it was, but it's a win. But something I found really interesting after the Broncos win were Sean Payton's comments in the post-game presser. Because you know how it is as a Broncos fan. Every time they get a win in the past 7 years, it feels like, even if it's after a few game losing streak, they always act like it's a big celebration. We won a game, we're on a roll, we're gonna win, and then as soon as the first quarter of the next game starts, it's over. That win was kind of fluky. And they over-celebrated, they overhyped themselves. The coaches bought in a little too much, even though they are overlooking some massive problems. But Sean Payton in his post-game presser did not do that. Now, I give Sean Payton a lot of crap. He's earned it. But he has said some things that I do agree with this offseason and year. I mean, his gambling take was absolutely fire. The NFL gambling policy is stupid. And now this. Now his comments where he basically said, yeah, it was a win, but it was a very, very sloppy win. We have a lot of things we got to work on. Defense is still bad. It's pretty much what he said. I mean, you can tell that's what he means. Defense is bad. The offense still needs to get a little up to speed. And I just haven't heard Broncos coaches say that kind of thing after a win in, like, ages. Or ever. Maybe not since Gary Kubiak's days. It's refreshing. It's like the coach is like, yeah, we won, but it was a terrible win. We need to do better. And I'm like, oh my gosh. They're working on their problems after a win, or at least he says so. Now, obviously, it's still yet to be seen whether or not the team's actually going to learn, because I still have to face the Jets this week, but I really like these comments from Sean Payton. It's different. At least the comments are different. Whether or not this actually translates to anything, I don't know. But the comments are different. So, I was wrong about the Buffalo Bills. About 4 weeks ago, after the Buffalo Bills lost their opening game to the New York Jets on Monday Night Football, I kind of roasted them. I called out the fact that their game plans haven't changed in over a year. It's still just Josh Allen, throw the ball deep, hopefully something happens. They have no run game. Their O-line is weak. Sean McDermott's still making bad decisions, and I really did not like them re-signing him in the offseason. However, I think I was a little early, because since that game, and maybe Sean McDermott watches my channel, maybe Sean Payton too, because after I removed him from the intro, that team was different. Maybe he watches my show, because after that, the Bills have completely changed. I said they stink. They no longer stink. They have blown out their opponents in the last 3 games. They only allowed 10 points against the Raiders, dropped 30-plus on them. Only 3 points against the Commanders, dropped 30-plus on them. Only 20 points against the Miami Dolphins, and dropped 48 on them this past weekend. And not only are they winning with blowouts, they're winning differently than they have the last few seasons. That run game, which I said they never developed, has developed. They're top 10 in yards this season. Rushing. Josh Allen isn't just relied upon to throw it deep. It actually looks like they have a bit of a game plan. They're throwing shorter a little bit to, the tight ends, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. They're throwing shorter screens and whatnot. The O-line has improved massively. And Sean McDermott, I said he should be fired last season. I said that I really didn't like this re-signing, but he's learned. I thought he couldn't learn how to adjust his offense, but man, he has. I mean, the fact that they're running the ball so well, James Cook is becoming a beast, a silent beast in Buffalo, because no one talks about Bills running backs too much. Stephon Diggs, I thought it was going to be a bit of a problem because he was very noisy in this offseason. He didn't really like Sean McDermott, but he's obviously been a stud this year. No complaints coming from there. And Josh Allen, even though his stats haven't been as good this year, he's played a lot better, if that makes sense. He's not having to run the ball 10 times a game for 50 yards. He's having to run maybe 3-5 times a game. Pick up the necessary yards, but not take ridiculous hits. He's not their entire offense. And one move I really liked from Buffalo was having Leslie Frazier resign. And I thought this was going to be a hindrance to the Buffalo defense in the regular season because he was such a good regular season D coordinator last year, but his playoff defense coordinating was absolutely horrendous. But it hasn't been a problem this year. If anything, they've gotten better. I mean, it's impressive. Like, really, honest and truly impressive. The Bills' defense has been stifling. Now, they did just lose Travis White to a torn Achilles, which stinks. He is their number one corner. Jordan Poyer is out with an injury. I think he'll be back at some point. I'm not entirely sure. But they get Von Miller back this week. They've fixed their problems, and they're looking bright towards the future. So congratulations, Buffalo. You have fixed your problems. I was completely wrong. And one more thing. Thank you for beating up on every opponent that's beaten the Broncos in the last, for the first 3 weeks to start the year. I really do appreciate it. It's nice to see, those teams get absolutely destroyed by you. Especially Miami. And especially Vic Fangio's defense. Before I get on to my New York Jets talk, I need to give you my predictions for week whatever is 5 of the NFL season. Now, this past weekend, I went a total of 7-9 with my picks. It was surprisingly bad. I started out with 4-1 with my picks. It was going well, but then I got Sunday night wrong. I got Monday night wrong. I got the Cowboys-Patriots game wrong. It was rough. That's why it's called roughing the passer. But oh well. You win some, you lose some. We move on, and let's get on to Week 5 NFL predictions by roughing the passer. Bears at Commanders. I have the Commanders winning Thursday Night Football over the Bears. Jaguars at Bills. Jaguars at Bills in London. So it's really more of a Jaguars home game, but it's called at Buffalo. A little strange. I have the Jaguars beating the Bills. I don't think that's going to last. I don't think that one's going to hold up, but here we are. These were made before the season. I can't change them. Texans at Falcons. Winner Falcons, loser Texans. Oh, this one might be an upset. Oh, dear. Panthers at Lions. I have the Panthers beating the Lions. Oh, dear. What was I on? What was I doing when I made these predictions? Titans at Colts. I have the Colts winning over the Titans. That one might actually come true. Dolphins at Giants at Dolphins. I have the Giants beating the Dolphins. Saints at Patriots. I have the Patriots beating the Saints. Ravens at Steelers. I have the Ravens beating the Steelers. Bengals at Cardinals. I have the Bengals beating the Cardinals. Eagles at Rams. I have the Rams upsetting the Eagles. Could happen. Jets at Broncos. The big game. The Sean Payton comments towards Nathaniel Hackett game. I have the Broncos winning. I have no clue if it's going to hold up, but hopefully it does. Chiefs at Vikings. I have the Chiefs beating the Vikings, obviously. Cowboys at 49ers. I have the 49ers winning in what should hopefully be a great game. Raiders at Packers. I have the Packers beating the Raiders. And those are my predictions for Week 5 of the NFL season. Give me yours in the comments below, and we shall see who's correct. I don't think I'm going to be right on a lot of them this week. It's going to be rough. Moving on to my final topic of the day. Broncos fans. This, apparently, is holding. But this is not pass interference. The Jets and Chiefs played on Sunday Night Football in what should have been an absolute snooze fest, with the Chiefs winning an easy game against the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets. But that did not happen. Well, they did win. But it became quite an exciting matchup. Zach Wilson was out-dueling Patrick Mahomes. The Jets' defense was going ham. And it was a surprisingly tight game heading into the fourth quarter, when Zach Wilson fumbled the snap and it was recovered by Kansas City. But there were multiple opportunities for the Jets to make a stop. They had the Chiefs on 3rd and long multiple times, and in both those instances, they were completely and utterly hosed by the refs. And it is just absolutely shameful. The first one was on a 3rd and 25. The Jets were playing, prevent defense. Mahomes couldn't find anyone open, so he starts to scramble. He just kept running and chugging and somehow found his way, getting a first down and moving the chains. However, on that play, there was a clear, very clear hold that Kansas City was committing that was not called. And I don't know how the refs missed it. I don't know why the flag wasn't thrown. I've heard online that it's because the Jets player wasn't outside of the body radius or the body lines of the Chiefs lineman, but it looked like holding. He was holding his arms up. Like if a defender's arms are up and is trying to break free, that's usually going to be called for holding. But not against Kansas City. So that was a big mistake by the refs that, of course, wasn't called against Kansas City because why would they? Taylor Swift's in the crowd and we can't have them lose. And then the second call. It's 3rd and 11. Mahomes is scrambling to his right. A defender's about to blast him, and so he just tosses a horrific pass up into triple coverage and is intercepted. But as soon as the ball is intercepted, the ref throws the flag out, and calls holding on the defense. Now, I have watched this play a few times, and I do not see holding whatsoever. They kind of run into each other, they don't really get slowed down, and the pass is then intercepted. How on earth is that called holding? If they wanted to call illegal contact, that would be fine. Well, it wouldn't be fine, because I don't even think it was illegal contact necessarily, but it'd be more understandable. But they called holding when you cannot see the Jets player Sauce Gardner actually grab the guy. It does not look like that at all. It looks less egregious than the Super Bowl call against the Eagles, which wasn't even that egregious. It was just a terrible throw by Patrick Mahomes. And you can't tell me that without that holding call, if that didn't happen, like if somehow the Sauce Gardner just played good coverage, that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have thrown that interception. There's no way the Chiefs player is coming down with it. That is a clear interception. It is an absolutely terrible pass by Patrick Mahomes, and he was bailed out. The same thing happened in the Super Bowl. He throws a terrible pass way long at Juju Smith-Schuster, and it is called holding even though Mahomes just threw an absolutely terrible football. But somehow it's called, and it just bugs me. And obviously it bugged Robert Saleh, that Jets head coach, who was absolutely livid after the play, and rightfully so, because it sealed the game practically. The Chiefs got a first down, they took a knee, and of course, in the scramble where Mahomes got the first down to basically end the game, he's celebrating like, look at me, I threw a horrific pass, and the refs bailed me out for it. So unbelievably ridiculous. I'm going to have to say it, but watching that play, we're holding. This is even more egregious than the Super Bowl one. And less egregious than the Super Bowl one. By far. And you know what makes this maddening? Just simply maddening? Is that if the NFL didn't want to seem like they were rigged, they wouldn't be calling this crap. You have the golden boy, Patrick Mahomes, and the team that's just won the Super Bowl. You have Taylor Swift in the crowd, and you throw a terrible and he throws a terrible pass, but he's bailed out by the refs. And it's not like the Chiefs still wouldn't have won anyways. That's even worse. The Chiefs still could have won if the Zach Wilson got the ball back, because it's not guaranteed he'd get a touchdown. Then you could be like, see, the Chiefs still held on despite, having a bad performance from Patrick Mahomes. Taylor Swift can be happy. All the Swifties can be happy. Or Zach Wilson does lead a comeback touchdown drive. He redeems his career, and it's an even bigger story. But no, we can't have that because the refs have to ruin the dang night. And oh my goodness. The Chiefs could potentially be 2-2 right now, but they're 3-1 because the refs are making some horrific calls out there. And you know what? Side rant. It kind of bugs me that you can't challenge for pass interference anymore. We live in 2023. We can't challenge for pass interference. We can't challenge a holding call. We can't challenge calls. Why? I think you can do that in the CFL. You can challenge penalties. Why in the NFL can't we do that? We have all the replays. If we can't challenge pass interference, we can't challenge penalties, what for? It's not like the Jets would have won, necessarily. But we'll never know because a great game, just like the Super Bowl, was ruined and tarnished because the refs made a horrific call and the Chiefs benefited from it. And with that, I shall end. This has been Roughing the Passer, the show that has talked football, miscellaneous stuff, and mostly football. I am your host, Sam Ruffing, a simple man who has made his way through the galaxy. I thank you very much for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you like my content. Hit the like button and share it with your friends and family. Hit that bell to stay notified when all content is uploaded. And huge thanks to all the people watching my Ryder Cup video. It is absolutely blowing up right now, which I'm psyched about because last night I had 1 view now as of time of recording. It probably has over 50, so thanks. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you later. Goodbye.